those games leading up to whatever that was, and like everyone panned it at release, and I was not upset. It worked.
Yeah, it worked.
I told you,
it worked. Just restart everything.
Yeah.
Apparently, checking to see if the computer's plugged in is the good first step.
I had to do literally. My dad hosts a sports show, and he was interviewing Lee Majors, tonight with like a group of people.
Oh, that's cool.
Or whatever. And like they called a minute before, they were going live. I was
And
like, "What do we do? Like, what? Have you turned it off and turned it back on? I don't know what to tell you."
Have you tried restarting your computer?
Yeah, he's like, "No, we haven't done that yet." So I'm like, "All right, well, restart it."
Shot,
Yeah, like try.
It's always your first go-to.
Yeah,
it's not a simple fix. Shut everything down and start over.
When you get in a mode of dependency, though, really, like when you're not the guy, like when you're by yourself and no one's helping you, you try to figure these things out. And, sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. But then when you have someone to go to, hey, there's this problem, you automatically go to. And you don't think of the basic stuff anymore.
No, man, that's so nice.
Because that happens to me at work because I don't have administrator access on my computer. At all.
Like, I was my own go-to guy. So it's like, just turn it off.
Bullshit, bro. You know the subreddits to go to. But anyway, I was the go-to guy.
I can't go to Reddit on my work computer.
I was the go-to guy in, like, high school and some of college and whatnot, and then Windows Vista came out, and I just
it was doing this last time when our last hangout.
You got a hard line, man. You got a hard line it.
I got a hard line.
You got a hard line it
all the way.
Hard line what?
From the router over into here.
It's like 2 rooms.
Yeah, I know. Or get closer to it. Depending on how strong it is, or move it out, or place it higher, or touch it appropriately, or tell it it's a nice girl, and you want to take it out sometime and.
Call it again. Don't forget to
call it
again. Yeah, don't forget to call her again.
I don't know. The first few times we did this, we had no issue. Now all of a sudden it's.
Well, make sure no one's running off your Wi-Fi. Have you turned off everything? Have you literally? That's another problem. Like you have to turn off everything before you start.
So it's fucking up again.
It's not fucking. It's just slower bandwidth. So like with regards to the feed, there would be some like watching it live would be problematic. I'm guessing, but like it catches up at the end, or I mean, what is that?
No, look at that. It's like 10,000 kilobits per second. You got it set too high.
Have what set too high?
The kilobytes per second. How much it can upload. Like you only need like 2,500. Like it's telling you that it's over and that it's fluctuating because you've got it set so high. But if you go in and say like you need less,
okay,
it'll take less.
You got a problem here?
No, I'm just.
It looked like you got a problem.
No, I'm just getting fucking frustrated. Jordan just keeps texting me. She knows what I'm doing. It's her. She got her day off.
We're recording right now.
We are recording.
Yes.
We're recording. We're streaming too.
We're recording and streaming this.
Great.
So I was trying to help you here.
Yeah, awesome.
A little late now.
Yeah. So
how can we talking about the signal strength of the feed if there was no feed?
I figured we'd at least start with an introduction, but my bad.
Well, this is the pre-show. This is
Ross
is coaching us in this.
Oh,
this is like
okay.
So like,
us just
I'll always
gabbing.
do a pre-show. Like I always do a pre-show because it kind of gets out the wiggles.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go ahead and like do everything you need to do. So like when we do Ask Me About, we do Facebook Live. I always do the pre-show before I start recording, before I hit record ever on the actual recorder, because you get out all of the weird conversation that you need to have before you start doing it. So it's done. It's done. Like, and that way you can launch into whatever it is you want to go into without having a verbose intro. So pre-show is great for streaming. Not so much on the podcast. You just cut it out.
For the podcast, we'll when I do the hello, that's where we'll actually start. All this 4 or 5 minutes we've been going on. All that's going to get cut out for the podcast where people will not be subjected to that. But if you're just tuning in on
not
YouTube,
even, you're really bad at time. It was like 3 minutes and some change, 3:45.
But we're not done talking.
No, we're not.
So it might be closer to 5 minutes.
Maybe 1 more minute.
I may make sure that we ban for another minute so that I can be right.
Right. Okay. Well, allow me to assist. I'm sitting here like a deer in the fucking headlights, just like okay.
Check the audio levels.
I guess we're doing this. Like awesome, cool, man.
I went over here to click the button.
Yeah, no.
I apologize. You didn't pick up what I was putting down.
Problem solved though. Not a big issue. Just please stop fucking texting me when I'm on air. I don't care who you are. I'm just like, why is my phone buzzing?
Yeah. I promise you, I will never text you unless I'm like, shut that shit down.
Yeah, I had to make sure.
Like, stop.
And I help him out of Steam too, because my brother likes sending me like game requests because we play a game on Steam together. It's Warhammer Total War or something like that. That's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, fun game.
But like, it's a really long-winded game. Like you can play for hours and hours, and like I'm on turn 7. Like it's a very slow-paced game.
That's
but it's a lot of fun.
I have with Civilization. Like I'll get locked in, and I lost 7 hours yesterday.
Man, you don't. Skyrim, bitches.
Oh, I completed Skyrim. I don't care anymore. Like, it was one of those
yeah,
things.
no, I'm talking about back in the day with Skyrim. Like, it just.
My problem was never
yeah.
Skyrim, but it was Morrowind back
Oh,
on PC.
well, yeah,
hundreds of years, thousands of years ago. Like, Morrowind, like, it took you 45 minutes just to walk across the map.
Oh, yes. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, like, it took forever
before the advent of fast travel.
Yes. Well, they did have fast travel, but you only had, like, points on the map that you go to. But, like,
you had to discover a location first.
You had to get there to begin with. So, like, you had to go from point A to point B. Yeah. Like, you're going to be traveling a while, and you don't know who you're going to or what you'll encounter.
Here's the question of how real you are with Elder Scrolls. Did you play Daggerfall?
No.
See, I know
Daggerfall.
And Daggerfall is actually the second game in the series. So the first game was called Arena.
Yeah.
And I never played Arena because that was even before my time. But yeah, Daggerfall. That was the game where you were like, there are places to locate. You could just run in the same direction for hours, literal hours, and cross what is the equivalent of a continent in hopes of running across some random ass location. Yeah. Like, and then you would find it and you could fast travel.
It took me like 3 months to figure out like how to start like one of the final missions where you have to find those teeth. You know, like the two little things sticking out. You play Morrowind, like you find like the entrance to the valley with the two teeth. 2 months, literally 2 months.
Well, I mean, you get sidetracked.
Wandering around.
You get sidetracked building XP and fighting things.
You can. By the time I fought Daggerfall, I was ready to go. Like there was no question.
Yeah. Well, that was me in Skyrim too. Though the first month and a half of Skyrim, all I did was wander the map and find everything. So I could fast travel to shit. You know, like I'm like, look, when I get into beast mode, I'm gonna want to move.
I do that with Assassin's Creed, and the latest one I did that one was Horizon
Zero Dawn.
Oh, that looks good.
Like I'll go as far as I will travel. I will journey the whole map just because like I have the free time and. Why not? It's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm doing that with Just Cause right now.
Oh, Just Cause 3 is so good.
It's fun. It's definitely fun.
Can we talk about how excited I am about the new Far Cry whenever the hell that's happening?
Yes. Like, where's it at? Like Arkansas or something?
No, it's in I believe it's in the Pacific Northwest.
It's like Washington or something.
Really?
Like
yeah,
that.
It is. And it's just like some like crazy like religious like white supremacy cult.
Yeah, that's what I thought. While I was like I probably assumed that was in the southern United States for a good reason.
Yeah, but actually, out west there's a lot
of that. You don't know.
There's a lot of like sort of like Christian identity factions that are like real separatists. Like they basically like on paper they don't acknowledge like the U.S. government kind of thing. Like,
so like no one's ever heard of the Bundys. That's exactly what we're talking about. The Bundys, like crazy, super far right, like Christian psychopaths with guns.
Yeah,
I tried to play 4 and I did not get it. Like 3, I loved.
I played 4. I think I got it on the cheap. It was okay.
I think like decent. I don't do the even numbered ones. Like Far Cry 1 was amazing. 3 was awesome. This one's 5. I'm pretty stoked.
5.
You know,
5. Yep.
Because 2 was
I didn't
not
look
good,
at Primal.
and 4 was just boring. Like
4 was the first one I played in the series. So.
3 was great. Okay. I thought 3 was amazing.
Was that Primal?
No, that
Primal
was the one
after
between.
4.
Oh, okay.
And then between 3 and 4 was Blood Dragon, which was
it's some kind of like over the top like
80s action movie, like with dinosaurs and lasers. And it was great.
I heard it was almost like a parody of itself.
If you can find, it's so good. It's so good.
All right, I'm talking to that one already.
I'll
add that to the roster.
And you open up on a helicopter with like unlimited ammo. So like you just get to wreck. You know, like first scene.
I just don't have time for that shit though. And now Destiny 2
It's not that long. It's probably 15 hours tops. At the max end, even if you do everything.
Yeah, I heard it's sort of a shorter.
Yeah, it is. It was an expansion. It wasn't really a full-on thing.
As I'm leveling up, 15 hours is too much to spare when Destiny 2 is involved.
This is why I'm glad I got on PlayStation.
This is all whiskey and politics, but now it's just video games.
but still, Destiny 2's here. I mean, I'm at like light level 210 or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm busting ass trying to be able to even.
Are you on Xbox One?
Yes. Trying my best.
PlayStation. Get on PS4. Like, I'm working a big job next week, so like I'll have like a little bit of discretionary funds.
Hopefully we'll go cross-platform because I would love to play with you boys in PvP. And show you why that Xbox controller is important.
Like if I can get it on PC and play cross-platform,
well, that's different. That's not even. I don't think we're ever gonna get to it. Maybe for PvE.
But they've done that with they did that with Gears of War. They went
they did it with Shadowrun too, and mean, anybody on PC was just stomping the holy shit out of you.
Yeah,
it was a little more
balanced
on Gears.
Platform.
Well, yes, exactly.
Because it's built for first-person shooters.
Not only that, but on top of that, like you can overclock the living shit out of things,
of course.
Just and mod all the way up to where you're like running beautifully on like this 4K screen.
I mean, if we're overplaying, we're gonna overplay, baby.
Exactly. Like that's actually the reason I stopped playing Call of Duties and things like that, like games like that, is that the technology, like the graphics level, it became impossible to tell what the hell's going on. Like even on a 60-inch HD TV, like everybody who's very far away, they're like tiny.
We do like a video game podcast, you know?
Oh well, like I stopped playing competitively. Like I was in one of the top 7 when Call of Duty first came out. The first Call of Duty was one of the top 7 clans for Call of Duty.
Allied Assault.
No, that was Medal of Honor.
No, Medal of Honor. Call of Duty. Sorry, I was gonna say Medal of Honor. Allied Assault.
Call of Duty 1.
I was Burn Boys, baby. Like Burn Boys, we were like I was the best sniper in the world. I had the best like kill death ratio. I had the most accurate shots. I had the most kills, and like I ran that for 2 straight years on Medal of Honor.
We played Call of Duty and Savage, which most people forgot about. Savage was one of the first. Like you get to play. Someone got to play as the commander, and like chose what you did and built like the different stuff. It's like an RPG or like a real time strategy, and then your players that played along with you, up to 16 people, like played as the soldiers. Gotcha. So like they chose their own classes, did what they did, that kind of thing. So you had like the 2 different roles going. It was awesome.
Man, I love it.
It was so much fun.
This
was like 2002, 2003.
Well, now we've totally cheesed out how we do health and everything, but Allied Assault was like very realistic in how quickly you would die.
Yeah, but you had to get health packs. Like you had to go get your health back.
Yes, exactly. But not only that, like if you got hit in the chest with a Garand,
the storming Normandy on that one was
like you died.
Yeah. That was a rough mission. The storming Normandy mission in itself, like if you were playing it on anything above normal, would take like 2 hours.
Yeah, no,
you were like,
I remember that. Yeah,
you were storming Normandy.
You get spit on, you die.
You're like literally waiting for another Higgins craft to land. For
someone can
like
back
6
you
machine gun
up.
nests. Maybe 3 of them will go somewhere else. So you can like try to run.
Hopefully you'll get out of this.
I remember how brutal that was.
Yeah, that was a good game.
Man.
Why don't they make games like that?
Well, that's what they're supposed to do with the new Call of Duty.
The
Call of Duty is like going that route, and more power to them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I thought Battlefield 1 was pretty solid, but
I didn't get a chance to play.
It was also
I've never actually played.
All my friends wanted to play online, and like I'm just being fucking wrecked by 12-year-olds constantly. You know,
see, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with the racist 12-year-olds talking shit about my mother.
And thankfully, I never actually ran into any racists. Like, I never had anybody drop the N-bomb on me or anything. Instead, it was just like, you're a fucking joke. How old are you? And I'm like, I'm 30 and I'm an attorney. And they're like, I'm in elementary school. Like, turn this shit off, you faggot. You know, plenty of homophobia. Yeah, homophobia is.
I'll tell you one that we could all play. I don't know how it works cross-platform. It doesn't work cross-platform, but Paladins. I know you can play.
I can play on
PC. We can all play on PC. It's like Overwatch.
Is it a Steam game, like a free-to-play Steam?
I'd have to actually get a PC that's capable of doing.
You'd be surprised it runs on like minimal stuff.
I'm running a 2010 MacBook Pro that I never bothered to update the OS X for, so I'm like on Snow Leopard.
Yeah, it won't.
Which was like 2010.
Yeah, it's like
no, like I can't update any browser. I can't update the OS because the App Store doesn't work. Like I can't update
Please
shit.
let us buy you a nice gaming PC.
Yeah, really what it is a hard drive that I can do a little bit of internet and Word with. I can type and like.
You need a Chromebook then. And just
seriously.
Well, no, I'm just gonna upgrade. I mean, like the time's coming. You know.
I can't spend that amount of money for a subpar. I just can't do it.
Subpar
for Mac, yeah.
Oh, well, anyway. Okay. I
mean, spec related.
But I just absolutely hate Windows at this point. Like, Windows XP was like my favorite thing
7 was the jam. 7.
I did like 7.
To this day, like XP and 7, 10 is a disaster.
I hate 10 so much.
That's what I'm saying.
This is now a tech podcast.
Yeah, well, that's what it was.
We're now a video game and technology.
I'm sorry, it's what I do.
Does anyone need refills or something going on?
Yeah, let's do this.
Stars.
This is pre-show, everybody.
Pre-show, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some more ice.
I want one of them and I want them. I'll get the one of them.
Okay. There's beer.
I mean, I brought the one, so
okay,
like I don't.
You want to finish it off?
I mean, I won't finish it off. Probably it'll be in here for the next time. I still have to.
I would love
to
get in
like,
on that.
You pull on like the next weird guest.
Actually, I was gonna say I have several good friends that I could holler at for philosophy. I mean, I was a philosophy major, and a few of us did go on to get PhDs. A few of them went on to get PhDs and do things. Like, I could probably pull in.
I was like two courses away from having a major. I've forgotten most of it, thankfully.
Right? It's super difficult not to get depressed.
I'm the only one who wasn't depressed about it. I was just like,
I was never really.
I felt like I had discovered.
I'm just speaking general. I'm not depressed about philosophy.
Just found like I found a font of knowledge and things made a shitload more sense.
Exactly.
You know, it was like, wow.
Or it gave me a system to where I can process. That was always my thing. Like, it gave me the ability to take a step back and be like, but hold on.
As soon as you feel like the dark curtain of depression coming in, I go right to existentialism.
Exactly. And I'm like, here's where I'm at.
Hold on, that's okay. Everything's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's fine. You know.
We are in a crisis.
Let's go ahead and ground ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have to pull it back in a little bit.
Bust out some Camus. Figure it the fuck out. Knuckle down.
I'm gonna borrow these.
All right.
Okay. What time are we at? We are on the recording. We're at 16 minutes. That's crazy. That's a good long pre-show of us. This is for YouTube. It's fun. We should go ahead and get started. Don't you think?
Yeah. Into it.
All right. Cool. We're gonna go ahead and start now. All right. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I am your host, David Poseidon.
And I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast in search of a more palatable political ferment. Tonight with us we have the illustrious tech guru, wizard, sage, Ross Jaynes, who we owe a lot to. How are you doing, Ross? If you're watching the pre-show, he doesn't talk like that at all normally.
It's really got creepy really fast.
And we wanted to have him on almost as a tribute, because we had been trying to do a podcast for a long time, and we had sort of little starts and stops and fits of trying to be more professional about what we're doing and trying to be a little bit more on point and creating a product someone's going to want to actually listen to.
I think it'd be best summed up as little bits of frustration where we're just like, what the fuck are we doing and why are we doing this?
Why are we doing
this? Is a huge frustration. I have no idea how to even publish this shit.
So
what buttons do I press?
Yeah. I ended up incidentally becoming friends with Ross. I can't remember how we actually met. Was it when you interviewed me like a while ago on Murray County Now? Was that the first time I don't feel like that's the first time we met.
Yes, because Quan had gotten.
That's right.
We had known each other before that. Through some of that. Like, I honestly don't remember how I become friends with literally anyone.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things, like, it's a natural matriculation that just occurs in my life, at least, where it's like, and now we're friends. I don't know how it happens.
We also,
you know what it was? It was Murray. It was Leadership Murray. That's the first time I met you. Yeah. I was in a Leadership Murray program. A lot of like local counties or areas will have like a leadership program to the up and coming professionals in the area will be able to like go and see how they do like education, infrastructure, government, how it all works in whatever area you live in, so you can be knowledgeable. And you have like a project or a presentation you have to put on at the end of this thing. Is like, it's not like a grade, but like it's sort of required. And we ended up enlisting Ross, who at the time worked for CPWS, Columbia Power and Water.
And my direct supervisor was going through the program at the time. Yeah. So that's how that ended up happening.
That's right.
Also, I was just going to say, I think everybody knows Ross. If you give half a shit about this community and get involved in kind of anything, you're going to run into Ross Jaynes.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's just true. I mean, like.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had him on here as guru, but basically, like, Ross is the most interesting man in Columbia. That's really not a joke at all, because he's into everything.
I don't know, man.
And everybody
Have you guys
knows
met Melvin?
Yeah, Melvin's pretty cool.
Melvin's an awesome guy.
Melvin's an interesting guy.
Melvin's a cool dude.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
Oh, I know exactly.
Melvin is a homeless man.
I know exactly where Melvin is right now. He's hanging out behind the back of the Presbyterian Church because Joe Evans offered in that building.
Oh, okay.
Fun fact, Melvin and I used to get biscuits in high school when at the Hardee's down there. Yeah. I've had breakfast with Melvin at least like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. I've seen him over at the soup kitchen they do out of the same church.
Yeah.
Actually. But anyway, so I got to know Ross, and I guess I don't know, for whatever reason, because I knew you were a tech guy essentially, and when we decided to get serious with what we're doing, or semi-serious,
we're doing our best.
Serious as compared to what we were doing before.
Doing what they can do.
Yeah, we're doing the best. And I was like, so podcast, how? And and you wrote some instructions, and I followed them, and here we are today.
And for that, we thank you, good sir.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to.
And you yourself are a podcaster.
I am.
It attributes to a lot of your institutional knowledge with regards to that.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your podcast, dude.
So I actually started back, and this is a wild. It's not really a wild story. It's a wild tech story. It's not a wild everyday for anyone else story. But if you're interested in how technology works, then that's one thing. So my dad is a former DJ. He still does voiceover work, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We constantly throw tech ideas at each other, back and forth. So it's nice to have like a dad who understands, like how techie you can get, and like I'm way more techie than he is, so he's just kind of like, go have fun, that sort of thing. When it's a project, that like we need an answer to, like it's never been like, no, cut off the restart. I guess when I was a kid, like up until like age 16, when I realized that I could like fix computers and stuff, but after that it was like, no, you do whatever it is magic that you do over there and like come back with the final answer. So we had found like FM radio transmitters that you could buy for like $40. That covered like a 2-3 mile range and that kind of thing. And the initial idea was like, oh shit, we could have cool pirate radio stations.
Because I guess you guys hadn't heard of AM yet.
Yeah. No. But like FM, like legit FM transmitters, like really cool things, because we were trying to find a solution for the parks department here in town, because they wanted to do different stuff. Like they were trying to figure out a way that they could like have their own like minimal range FM broadcast station. So when I was doing that, I was like, oh, well, it would just be just as easy to try to figure out how to do an online radio station. Mm-hmm. So I started investigating that and going down that road. Learned how to do an online radio station. I had a Columbia Radio Network for about a year and a half, where I just ran like local artist tunes and that kind of thing, and it sent to the web server. And like if you checked in, like you would always hear like either a Columbia Radio Network promo or like a local artist, that sort of thing. But in the process, I would upload my own content with the first podcast that I did, which was the Disclosure Show. And we did it for about 6 or 7 episodes. They're buried somewhere on the internet, that sort of thing.
New mission.
Yeah. But it was me and Adam Southern and Ty Cobb, and we all got together and like had a little podcast, and like people really responded well to it, and I thought it was great. But it was really hard trying to coordinate that many people and like the interview guests that we wanted to do, because I really wanted it to kind of be more of a panel show.
Sure.
And through that, I learned through WordPress that you could put out through, a podcast or whatever else. So like that was my main mission at that point, was like getting down to the next level, anything tech-wise you do, there's always one more step you can take to make it better, in any capacity. That's one of the beauties of it. So I got down to the bottom, we released those shows, and then like I ended up going through my divorce period. So like pretty much all the work that I had done up until that point kind of went just bottomed out, like it was like the barest of minimums. And that's one of the things that got kicked on the back burner, because it's like you just can't do everything when you're going through, again, like we were talking about in the pre-show, like a crisis, real existential crisis. Like you can't, it's hard to do the higher functioning things when you're barely meeting like level 2 of, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, depending on how you're looking at it.
Oh, yes.
So like when you're barely meeting level 2, like waking up every day,
getting out of bed occasionally,
being a person,
showering once a week,
like it gets difficult to do the higher level stuff. But I've always been interested in it, and I've always listened to podcasts. Back in like 2004, 2005, I was on at least one podcast that had a few million listeners. We're not going to go into that right now or why.
Okay.
But that's another story for another time. But I would guest on that show on a regular basis, because I was kind of like the newbie to that world, and I introduced myself as that. Like I was like, I'm the new guy here. Like, let me give you my perspective. And that's the way that I pitched it. That's the way that I got on the show. It was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me do it like this. So I got into it that way, and I realized the reach. I actually have a couple really great friends right now because of it. Where I was featured nationally. I got a dude in Boston, a dude in Atlanta that like that's how they found me. They found me doing that show, and like we're still really, really great friends because of it. So I've always loved podcasting. I've always loved the ability to get your message or the perceived message that you want to put out there into the world and make it a thing that everyone can enjoy or at least chomp on, a little bit depending. You may not like it, but it's there. You know?
Because I mean, really, podcasting really appeals, at least in my opinion, looking at the marketing aspect of it, it really appeals to all of us because there are down times where we're just bored, especially if you live in an area like we do where you work in Nashville and you sit in traffic for an hour and a half.
Absolutely.
This is all I do on the drive. And that's one of the reasons why I got into podcasting to begin with, is because
a bunch of dead time.
Fun fact, I drove back and forth from Murfreesboro for about a year, my junior year of college. So, I had to fill it up with audiobooks and podcasts.
Yes, exactly.
And, that sort of thing.
I get tired of listening to audiobooks.
I would just start downloading podcasts because that was the brand new thing at the time. And, if you were doing that, it was huge.
Well, and there was no FCC censorship or anything.
No, it was a brave new world out there.
Because, the corny morning show jokes get old sooner or later. I like the fuck word. I like edginess.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. It's when you're trying to fill downtime and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and you got an hour and a half commute.
And when audiobooks were a brand new thing on digital, podcasts were kind of like a gateway to a whole new world that you had never heard of before, especially if you're listening in a sphere that you want to be in.
And the good old days where you downloaded the podcast beforehand and put it on an iPod.
Oh, that's exactly what it was.
Instead of streaming it, that wasn't even close to an option.
21st birthday, I guess, 22nd birthday, I had a really, really good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine, John Brown. I'll throw a shout out for him. He was like, because I hadn't known that I'd wanted this, but I'd always have a CD changer and stuff to always improve audio quality. So
I understand.
He had been working a really great job at the time. He was like, I'm going to get you an iPod, but it will be pink. So I had a pink iPod mini.
High five.
Oh my goodness.
And I rocked it. It was one of those things. It's like, no. I have an iPod and it's pink. I don't care.
Actually, this is a fun story. A buddy of mine and I both got iPod minis through one of those click ad. You've won a
really? No.
You really did?
We seriously, we researched them and
you're the two people ever.
No, we bounced them off of Better Business Bureau reports
to make sure
and everything.
Legit.
And we probably went through 1,000 of them. Also, shout out to Joshua Miller, holler baller.
Right.
Josh is a great person. I'd love to have on this podcast someday. He worked for Bath Iron Works in Portland, Maine, helping design the Zoom Walt, one of the newest. He's going to kill me for this. I think it was a battleship, but it was one of the newest ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man's brilliant. But
cool.
So we dicked around on that and we tried for it, whatever, and he got his first. And it came in the mail, and he had a bright lime green iPod Mini.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, holy shit! It's only gonna be a matter of time before mine comes in now.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
of course, I got little bright baby blue,
yeah,
really effeminate.
I had
colored
the
one.
solid pink iPod, and that's how he would introduce me. It's here is Ross Jaynes, and he has a pink iPod Mini.
But let's talk about that click wheel, that click wheel, bro.
Was on point. Oh
my god!
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
After manhandling.
You gotta pound it. It got wet or a little sticky one time. It's over.
I think I sneezed on this Walkman, and now I can't skip forward on track.
So that's what really got me into podcasting and understanding how all that worked and everything else. But I had again, brief history. I'd worked in radio. I had worked in everything, before that. Again, my dad being a DJ and whatever. I had worked in radio from 15 to all the way into my late 20s or early 20s. Where it was just a side gig. It's super easy. Especially when you're running a NASCAR race, a UT basketball game. You just go in and hit the button when they call for the commercial break. You don't do any. You are just
a bump on a log.
You hear a series of 5 words and you hit a button and that's it. So I would do my homework, I would do all that other stuff or whatever, and occasionally you'd have to take over. Where you'd be all right, well, some shit's fucked up.
Let me go ahead and run this.
Let me just run these carts that I have. Welcome to 1972. We're back to being a DJ. And that kind of thing. So I'd already had experience in audio, and then doing the video thing that I did, doing video in college, like you learn how audio works because all of video is audio. You can get away with crappy video as long as you have really great audio. Yes. So audio comes first. Video is a secondary consideration, at least in my opinion. But if you can do the video right,
now that's something that we've beaten into our heads hard.
It's very much
we've learned this
in our development of this that I think there was too much focus initially on
like when do you do video? We need to do
video. Well, we need to see our faces, but like, that's not what a podcast is about. Like if you guys are catching this on YouTube, that's cool. I hope you guys are having a fun time. But really, this is to be crafted for someone to listen to on their commute or whatever. Right. You know, that's what podcasting is all about.
Of course.
Personally, I don't even listen to music in the car anymore. I only listen to podcasts. Like
I flip back and forth.
God, you're boring.
Yeah, I flip back and forth.
Dude, you have no idea. Like it's because you don't want to get behind on nothing. Because like, I've got Sam Harris and I've got Dogma Debate and I've got the Serious Inquiries and what's the other one? Opening Arguments.
Opening Arguments is the one I need to start listening to.
Because seriously,
but right now,
dude blows smoking holes in originalism. Like
I will give you.
And I've told you this is where I got my argument from.
And I've told you there's a huge difference between originalism and the Ted Cruz version of it. That's bullshit.
Triggered.
Yeah. All right, man.
So one of my recent, and this is just recent favorite podcasts that I've come across, and like I've gone back and started listening to his old stuff too, and he actually showed up in a Washington Post article like the past couple days because it was fantastic. But Jocko podcast, it's by Jocko Willink.
Jocko was interviewed by Sam Harris a while ago. And it was a really great interview. It was a great interview.
Someone keep me on point. I don't know what the hell we're talking about.
It's fine. Doesn't matter.
Our
former Navy SEAL. Sure. And like he's written a book called Extreme Ownership with one of his co-partners. They have like a consulting agency they do with like management and leadership and that sort of thing. Basically, it's like he reads war stories or like interviews war people, you know, that kind of thing. So it's basically a primarily military concept, military podcast, but done in such a way that like leadership is important. And that's one of the things that like I take away from on a regular basis is because like I've always I've never not been in a leadership position. So I don't know what it's like, you know, to sit back and like have to be a troop sometimes, you know, because it's like this is yours now.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You're like, I don't even know what. Sure, all right.
I'm so type A personality. I get that.
Exactly.
It is very rare that I'm in a true leadership position. Yeah. Usually, someone puts me as like middle management in something.
Yeah, no,
that's
I don't have that problem.
But I got to answer to somebody, you know.
Yeah, no. But normally it's like, and now you're in charge, and you're like, okay.
Or maybe I need to add that to my roster because. I've found myself in leadership positions that I neither intended or desired.
Yeah, I never wanted.
It's like a true progressive liberal. You really just want that job and to be told what to do, and you're going to do it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
like, I don't really at all. Make decisions or like think on the fly.
You see how he's trying to trigger me back?
Yeah.
Cheers. Sorry.
But like if you're rolling into if you're rolling into a past version of me or even a current one, like I've never not been in that position. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it's like to not be in charge for the most part. And like it hurts sometimes, but like hearing that podcast, listening to different people, express that belief or like a different way of hearing it, or even just something you need to hear throughout the day, to do that job better. Like that's that podcast for that, honestly, because it's no frills. There's no junk in it. There's no like they have
it's just straight up energy.
It is straight energy the entire time. Like he does not let off. And if you've ever been led by someone that can do that, like it is great. It is fantastic. Because one of the things, again, if you want to talk about, whiskey politics, whatever, leadership, we can talk about. I'm sorry. Fermenting Opinions. Well, I mean, we're doing these things.
What? Oh, I didn't know. Oh, yeah. I thought you meant whiskey and politics.
Yeah,
like two different things.
We're enjoying those.
Yes,
right now. We will talk politics.
Yeah, we will talk
like
politics.
Whiskey.
But like leadership is an important component of anything that it is that you do, and you have to have a good, strong, solid, well-balanced, reasonable, approachable, humble individual that should be in charge. Like they should be doubting themselves. They should be.
Oh man!
Please. Like, oh no, what just happened?
Yeah. Speaking of being triggered, I could talk about this most recent Titans game all day. I'm just going to shout it out for half a second. Mike Mularkey, it's not a crime to second guess yourself, bro.
Yeah, you can call it back in.
Yeah, no,
you can call it in.
It's totally fine to second guess yourself. What's not okay is to refuse to admit that you second guessed yourself when it was pretty fucking clear you second guessed yourself.
You got it.
And that's own it up. Forge ahead, move on, do your thing.
But
like commit.
Yes.
And then lean in.
You have to be circumspect.
You have to do that job. Yeah. And you have to do it in such a way that like allows for that level of flexibility.
Sure.
Most people don't.
So let me change a little bit of gears here.
Bring
if
it
you don't
in.
mind. I think we've covered you a little bit here, but I want to talk about projects you work on now, things you're actually doing. One of which is Murray County Now.
Murray County Now, yes. So Murray County Now started in 2012 as more of a long format, kind of like succinct 2020, kind of idea, where it's like we deliver 3 to 5 minute segments on things for people in Murray County that are important.
I mean, I remember being on Murray County Now for, I believe I was.
Yes, for Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go came out. That's right.
Because
like
it was one of those things that like,
yes.
So it's one of those things to where we had been kicking it around, me and Ty Cobb, and I'll go back into my history if you'd like to. When I started at Columbia Power, I had met a few people and we'd started a show called About That Time.
I remember that
actually. I mean, like if you go back and watch it now, like it literally makes my skin crawl.
Yes, but that's part of the problem of when we were talking earlier about press releases and being asked to write your own copy for yourself.
Right.
No, it doesn't work.
No. So like at that time, like I was not necessarily being confident on screen. Like the one person that I was really kind of coordinating this with, like ended up being a serious grifter and like that kind of. So it was never really built on anything stable.
Who's not been there though for a project?
Right. But out of it, I got to be friends with Ty Cobb and Jonathan Harrison, both of which are top tier in what it is that they do today.
I really like Ty.
Yes. So
Democrat as he may be,
of course, but he's a reasonable person.
He very much. Yes, he really truly is a moderate Democrat.
Yes, he really is. He really is. He's a good dude.
I like him a lot. Yeah.
So I got to meet those guys, and we had been kicking around. Like we had the name Murray County Now from the end of that show in late 2007, early 2008. Like we had the name of the show. Mm-hmm. But that was when he was ramping up
a while then.
Yeah, so like we had that name, we kind of held on to it. We were more focused on, because I got brought in as like his local campaign manager, here for the 2008 campaign, and then full manager basically for 2010, and then communications director for the 2012 state run. So like I kind of helped him all the way along, as you go, but like sometimes things don't work out the way that you hope they do.
Yes, having worked on several campaigns,
and that's fine. Especially when like the blueprint that you wrote for the first one, where like we were literally sitting in his living room and like I've got multiple of those sticky pads up.
Yeah.
Like I'm writing out numbers. Like here's what's gonna have to happen. Like I will tell you every single mark that has to be made. Because I write a good plan.
And that's the problem with the re-election campaign, especially is when you nail it the first time, you're like, we got to go back to the well. We don't have to go back to the well. We got to go back to
I've got to rewrite all of this and do it again. And that's what I did. But that doesn't mean that other people follow it.
Yes. No, not only that, but before you're challenging somebody and the points to hit on.
For me, it's easier on the come up than it is the retain the defense.
Exactly.
Like I'd rather be on the offensive than have to sit defensive.
Heard that too.
Because I primarily use the counteroffensive as my primary attack method. Like it's my attack method.
I was going to say, I think that's kind of a type A personality thing.
Yeah, too, counteroffensive
is like we're really good at pushing forward.
You're gonna have to hit me first, and then I'm going to unload the arsenal. But because I've built one, it's great. Don't touch that button. Like when you tell someone, like, please don't hit the button.
Trust me, I'm gonna push it when it's time.
Yeah, exactly. And they hit the button. And it's like, well,
that old Man in Black joke where they're in the when they're in that car. And don't touch the button. Don't touch the button. He's like, finally, he's like, touch the button.
Yeah, now it's time to hit the button. That's the way that I work. Please don't hit that button until it's time. But when you hit the button, you got to be all in.
This is exactly the same way. When you're doing small practice trial work, especially.
Yeah.
Yes, this is how this works.
Yeah.
This is like you keep telling them, look, I know you're tired of eating shit, I know you're tired of being in this position. I know you're tired of being the defendant and being on defense. People are accusing you of things. And I'm like, no, we're building
evidence. You take the hits.
Roll with the punches and smile.
Until you cannot take the hit anymore. And then when they hit the button, it's go time, baby.
Exactly.
Well, the problem was with the last 2 campaigns is when the button got hit, sometimes people don't want to launch into action. And like that's the thing that just ends up happening.
No, well, that's the good news about being the attorney in that kind of situation too. Is
you get to pull the trigger.
Exactly.
You get to pull
you
the trigger.
To convince the client that it's time to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And to sit back and shut up.
Right.
And like just.
And when you need to pull the trigger early on, and most people don't believe that you need to. You're like, no, now. And then like when you miss the point and they're like, well, we should have. And it's like, well, but I literally told you.
And the good news is with criminal defense, at least in that end, is that you rarely are pulling the trigger towards the end. Until we want to play the game and see what the state's saying.
And that's pretty much what happened in the latter 2 of those things. It's like you had to pull it early.
Yeah,
and it made
because
people upset because you're the only one advocating for this position.
Yes.
So that's the political strategy end of it.
Well, and it's like I was trying to say earlier, it's much harder being the incumbent than it is to be the challenger.
Right.
Being the challenger, all you got to do is sling shit and come in there
and
explaining why it's not working
and just
them.
Launch appropriately. All you have to do is hit the right marks at the right time, and everything's okay. But if you're playing defense, like you have to be purely counteroffensive, and that was my whole argument the entire time. Like you're gonna have to.
It's a lot harder to stop the ball from being caught than it is to just catch the damn ball.
Exactly.
There are a lot of rules stacked against you as the guy who's taking your hits.
And I would rather, if I'm doing any sort of thing politically, like I would rather fight on my own turf rather than on someone else's, because you'll always lose on someone else's turf, at least in my opinion. The only way that it works is if you're backing up and you're playing death ground.
I think that's really sad. On a different note, just when the person who holds the office is the person who has to sling shit just to gain ground in the beginning.
It's how our system
because those are the sound bites that work. That's what people want to hear is like, oh no, who's this person challenging me? No one's ever heard of you yet. Well, you're a piece of shit, and here's why.
But I've also helped run campaigns that have done the opposite, where like you don't have to do anything.
How'd that work out?
We won. We won. Like you hold the line, you hold the line, you hold the line. But it depends on the type of opponent that you're facing.
True.
So if like they're not going to cross the line because you haven't given any ground, you'll win. But obviously, in a defensive battle, like that's the best way to go.
Yeah. If they don't aggress.
Duh.
I mean,
if they're not willing to aggress appropriately.
But the moment
because if you can shut them down on every single thing before they even get there, you can't fight. Like they can't fight you because you've already knocked out every angle of attack. But if you're not willing to knock out the angle of attack before they get there by showing an aggressive stance or putting things out offensively, then they're of course going to keep encroaching because they see an opening.
Sure.
So if you set up the defense appropriately to begin with, you're fine. But the second that you let one piece of the wall crumble, again, read any fantasy book, just pay attention to history.
I was going to say, you don't even read fantasy, read history.
Fantasy books for me, like, give the best example of it. Because, like, for most people, they can't understand the time and pass of history. Like, one thing ends up leading to the thing.
Well,
like,
that's on the
in fictional novels, it happens immediately.
Yes. Well, if you haven't read any good historians that actually, like, put out what looks like essentially a novel, but is really a history book.
Right.
Oh, they're great.
Of course they are.
Wow.
But
that's always
point of contact flips. And then after that, you can't... Like, unless you're willing to put in a bigger stopgap, which most people aren't willing to do at that point early on, then it's only going to make all the dominoes fall after that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that works.
Yes, indeed. So speaking of political campaigns and runs, in 2016, you ran for Murray County Commissioner.
As a write-in.
You did?
As a write-in.
I voted for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So I had
because you did just go through this whole spiel.
I did.
You really talked a lot of games.
And you're not currently a commissioner. So
I'm not currently a commissioner. No.
So there's a little crowdy.
So fun fact, I had been asked to do it. I didn't do it necessarily of my own accord. I mean, when I saw the need and what needed to be there, like I definitely tried to step in and fill the void. I definitely tried to run. So it took about 3 or 4 influential community members to step back and say, like, no, really, though.
But Ross, we need
you.
But
it literally took them like beating on my door to be, to convince me.
Which one of your influential people, without name dropping, built the bat signal and put the signal?
I mean, he would have been the one to put it on the courthouse.
Fair enough.
Like actually built the signal, calling the people to do it.
That's funny because I think I already know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like he'd have been that dude. So it was like you have to do this. Like we have to have you. Like this is one of those things where we need you right now more than ever.
If I'm correct in my assumption, this is a person who's liberally leaning.
No, actually.
Really?
No. Because I work with people on both sides of the aisle.
I know you do. But I was
this
thinking,
was a
the person I'm thinking
serious conservative person.
Really?
Yes, extremely.
So you just threw me through a loop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. So they were like, no. You're the only. We feel like that you are the only person that can bring some level of whatever it is to this to make it happen. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll throw in, and I had missed the actual, because I was going to go in as the only candidate.
Yeah,
but
somebody
I missed
who's
the
actually
date, like the actual date to submit by like 2 days, because I didn't find out that I needed to do this until after the fact. Otherwise, I would have been a candidate on the ballot.
When's the next run for county commissioner in your district?
It'll be 3 years.
You gonna be on the ballot
this year? It depends on where I am.
Fair enough.
It honestly depends on where
sorry, that was a quick little interruption.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that's a fair assessment. I think that's fine. If I were to run again, let me step back. I've always seen myself more as the kingmaker than the king.
I remember this conversation. We had this conversation in front of our local brewery, Asgard. We were having a beer, and you were talking about being the kingmaker.
Like I would rather be Merlin than King Arthur.
I don't blame you.
I would rather be second to someone else that can do better first.
Well, this goes straight into the Republican Plato.
Right.
The philosopher king.
Of course. Yes. Like I would rather sit that position because I know that I'm going to be able to do more for more people and to do better than if I was out front. Because out front, I'm going to have to be restrained. I'm going to have to be a thing that I am not.
So there is this age-old saying, though, that those who can do and those who can't
teach.
Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't think it's so much a matter of can or can't. It's.
But there are a number of there are a number of examples in history though that would say the opposite.
Who? What?
Freddie Rich, boxing coach. Like he learned very early on that he's not going to be able to be the out front boxer. He's not going to be able to be that boxer, but he can train people to do it better because and I'll take
so
the example
he gets
back.
The fundamentals. He understands the strategy of it, but he physically cannot.
Just shut up and let me tell you what to do. Yeah. Like, just follow this set of instructions and you'll be fine.
But do you know how much charisma it takes to convince someone to shut up and do what
yes,
you're saying?
Exactly. It requires a lot.
And this is going to a person that you want on the front lines, essentially, to be charismatic.
But this is our dynamic. This is you juxtaposed to Fermenting Opinions.
Right.
Because I was like, Coach.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
where do I bob?
What do we do? How do we do this? Like, what do you do? Yeah. And like, I would rather sit on that side, not because I can't do it. I can do it, but it exhausts more energy for me to be the one out front, to be the one doing this literally right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, like it costs me more energy and is not necessarily a greater waste of my time, but is not the most efficient use in and thereof.
Okay, so this actually leads me to my next question.
Yes,
quickly,
please.
Because I do want to know the answer to this.
Yeah.
On this note, because I think it goes to exactly what you're saying, and that you can do, but you'd rather be the kingmaker. When we closed election night in 2016, we thought you won.
Yeah, everybody did. Everyone did.
How much did you lose by? How close was it?
I mean, it was a good bit because the person that beat me sat out on election day and like generated, an extra 300 and something votes, whatever. I had won the pre-vote total by a good margin.
Yeah.
I mean, above and beyond.
It was my understanding, even looking at the state commission's website, it looked like you had won.
Yeah, I had won. Yeah. I had won.
And then you were on silver lining, and that got taken away because this is the night that Trump got elected. And I was sitting here.
You preach a lot here, but I want to know,
I do. And I can't say that I took it pretty well because it was one of those things I was like, I knew that something wasn't right. Like, you just know when there's some things in the air, when you're like, and like, that's why I asked. Like, I have people at the paper, I have people at the, I had asked repeatedly, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And everybody was like, yes. When I got the call the next morning, I was actually at a Murray Alliance event. Like, if you want to hear one of my most vulnerable moments in my entire life, like, I was at an event, like, where everyone was congratulating me. And I have to go around to everyone, like, the community leaders. And, like, every time they say congratulations, you're like, well.
Actually.
But not really.
Yeah.
And then explain it, and they're like, do what now?
The Secretary of State got it wrong.
Yeah, they're like, what? And they have to, like, process that, like, while you're standing with them doing it. I'm not talking tens of times. Like, it's
I understand.
I've been to hundreds of times. We're having to relive this defeat over and over and over, like, in public and you're the first person to tell them. That's not necessarily true. Let me tell you the truth. Like, it didn't bother me. Like, it's one of those things, kind of the same way that my divorce happened and, like, the fallout from that. Like, the more that I talked about it, the easier it got to talk about.
Sure.
So, like, you do the first one. Okay. Like, you do the second one, you're like, all right.
You find the right words.
Yeah, you find the third one, you're like, better. Fourth one, cool. Fifth one, this has just become systematic now.
Exactly.
Like, I haven't have to crank out the same thing, like, over and over. And, like, it doesn't matter how much it expends my soul. Like, this is the thing you have to do now.
Yes.
You have to relive this defeat over and over and over and over again. Not because of anything it is that you did. It's because someone else went out there and did what they did.
Yes.
Great. Fantastic. I'm glad that it happened that way because I didn't have the kind of time to do that. I'm glad that someone else did. Good for them. There's no ill will. There's no, like, I wish that I had been sitting there now.
Well,
like, I don't care about anything about that. Like, doesn't matter.
Well, yeah. I was going to say that's a fun question that I asked that because today I believe was the day that Hillary Clinton's book "What Happened" dropped.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to people talk about
that's a whole other bag of cats.
Well, sure, but I was going to say, I really think that the comparison is still relevant, even though, obviously, we're talking apples and kumquats.
Exactly.
They're both fruits, and you can compare.
We're talking apples and, like, giant architectural buildings on, downtown Manhattan skyline.
They're both fruits. They're just
things.
Different fruits.
Yeah.
But I would assume that's how she felt. Like,
there was. I've heard some interesting reviews from listening to other podcasts and stuff like that, like Pods of
I've
America.
read a few things. As well.
That basically what she gets at, just as a brief segue, that in her book she sort of tells a lot of truth about the way, like, the double standards employed and the way she was treated.
Does she
and now everything was but also she doesn't really quite acknowledge some of the issues at the same time. So there's sort of good and bad things. Yeah, because
there are, like, serious issues with that campaign, like, this is that need to be addressed.
Well, right. Yes. Well, I think that my understanding is she gave a blanket statement, at least, of how it is her fault for kind of being lazy in the campaigning due to the polls. My question is, does she address the DNC hack specifically, shedding light on the fact that the DNC
I have no idea.
Cheated, they colluded with her? If you want to talk about election collusion, we have absolute proof of that one. The Trump end with the Russians, but it's going to happen, and it's not going to happen.
Was she involved personally in that, though? That's... Again, we're getting a little off topic here, but
I don't know.
No, please. I'm interested.
Okay, sure.
Three guys that haven't read the book are going to talk about it.
I haven't either, but I don't think she addresses it.
I haven't heard it because I think you would have heard something about that. At this
what I was going to say is that I don't know if you've ever kept track of Hillary Clinton. She's a very bright person.
Sure.
She's
not stupid.
She's very much about micromanagement.
Yeah.
If you want to sit here and argue and you think that Hillary Clinton didn't know that her campaign was colluding with the DNC to cheat Bernie out of shit.
I just thought it was the party itself.
I got a bridge in Arizona to sell you.
It was no.
But that doesn't mean there was any, like, tangible.
Yes, no. There's a huge. There was tangible. There's a huge problem. There's a reason Debbie Wasserman Schultz
is
resigned the next day.
Yeah, of course.
Because she was involved in the collusion.
And was hired by the Hillary campaign.
There are emails directly linking her saying, we're going to do this and this to discredit Bernie. We're going to push your message. We're going to talk to the media outlets.
And this directly ties to why I actually left the Democratic Party. It was because of these hacks and coming out that they were trying to saddlebag Bernie Sanders as an atheist to make sure he loses the prize. No, seriously, that was it. I said, really? Fuck you, Democratic Party. Well, that was me right then and there, drop dead. Well, this is why I ended up voting for Gary Johnson.
I know. I think that you're giving a little too much credit. You're giving too much credit to that end because the main push was to decry Bernie Sanders as not being a Democrat and being an actual socialist, and to basically make him. There was a series of emails about demonizing Bernie for a reason to shut down the Democratic Party. All he's doing is, criticizing the party and not actually doing anything. He's just talking a bunch of feel-good shit that, sure, if you want to double down and say,
There was a variety of emails on this sort of, throwing him under the bus.
I get that. Hillary Clinton ran a campaign of, we can get you 8-minute abs. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, let me put out a tape that says you can get 7-minute and 45-second abs, bitch. And how do you argue against that? And that's essentially what happened. I think she made that comparison in her book, actually, but I have no idea because
I don't know how much of that
I'm never going to have time to read.
No. Maybe an audiobook.
Most of the punditry I've heard on it has come from sort of after the primary phase and what happened in the general.
That's
what happened. Well, she wrote a book about it. We're all sitting here talking about. We've been living it. We're here in this zone. I think 20, 30 years from now, this is going to be, great reading for some, college, civics class or something.
But it leads me to the question again of do you address the fact that you cheated and that you knew you were cheating, that you knew your campaign was cheating? Do you address the fact that the deck was stacked against your opponent in the first place?
And her being personally knowledgeable of that, to me, are not the same thing.
But it's out there. We all know.
We're so.
But it's out there. That's cool.
But we're not in the weeds because we're not done relitigating this.
I'm not trying to relitigate anything. I'm just asking. I don't know. I haven't read the book. My real question was to see if you guys had seen anything about it.
I haven't seen anything in terms of the Bernie DNC thing.
Because if she really wanted to talk about something and be relevant, she should have addressed that.
But here's the thing, though. And this goes back to a deeper level meta. It goes back to a deeper level meta level conversation, and of course it plays both sides as just playing to your audience. Yeah. And if you want to get into the media topic, you can do that now. The one that follows you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But isn't the idea to unite the Democratic Party? I mean,
is it?
It probably should be.
But that doesn't mean that it is.
You fucking think, you guys are really good at losing.
Yeah.
All you do is lose, and you lose to fucking morons half the time.
Of course, it goes back to that Aaron Sorkin rant that I post once every 6 months. From the newsroom. Yeah, that's my favorite thing. If you're so fucking smart, how do you lose so fucking always?
Yeah, why do you lose all the goddamn time?
Exactly.
It's true. It's true.
It hits. If you're looking at it appropriately, it hits right.
You're
that's right.
But you have the highest middle ground on the planet on all kinds of issues. Hell, look at the Charlottesville thing. How much higher on moral ground can you get than fighting fucking Nazis? And your response is to show up with weapons?
Yeah, God.
Why?
I know. It's this counterproductive, self-torpedoing.
Yeah,
that happens
is the state of the Democratic Party. So if you're Hillary Clinton and you give half a shit about what's
going on.
Antifa
aren't Democrats.
Okay. Again, that's the state state of liberal voters in general. If you want to do something to unite them, maybe eat some crow and talk about the scandalous shit. Look, your run's over. No one wants you to run again. I cannot imagine you have any more souls to sell to the devil to actually get a nomination.
I think Hillary put out in her book that she's done.
She did. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
But in that case, why don't you use your power? Because honestly, there's a lot of Democrats that I know that are very intelligent human beings, that are influential, that give a damn, that love her.
That would throw their weight behind anybody that she put up.
But shout out Alex Wells, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. I know you love her, and that's totally cool, man. But what I'm saying is, why not try to do something unifying? Why not say, I knew about this or I didn't know about this. You could even fight it off. But the fact that it happened is incorrigible.
Yeah.
We don't
reprehensible.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Democrats that we still have the biggest problem with messaging. That we don't have something coherent. Where the best statements we make are the anti-Trump statements because it's easy.
I'll give you a great
Trump's
example
horrible.
of something that happened.
What are we gonna say after that?
Yeah, hey, guess what? They didn't win an election.
And again, I follow both the Murray County Republican Party page and I follow the Democratic Party page. I follow both. Like I try to be as centrist as possible.
We're gonna mention the Republican
only
Party
because
page.
only because I want to understand. Like that's my whole purpose. Like I want to see where things are going. I want to see how they're coming. But like the Democratic Party page will get upset about some shit that someone else said that they don't have anything to do with. Like they'll go on a riot.
It's got nothing to do with.
That has nothing to do with like the most important fact. It's like the only reason why they're saying this is because for you to have this conversation. They're distracting you. Like they're intentionally misleading you because you're so stupid. Like you're so smart and stupid.
I've seen the dog whistle shit.
Which party are we talking about?
Both. If you really want to, but like they're so smart, stupid that like why are you having this discourse?
The last Murray County GOP post I saw on Facebook was
have
talking
a way
about
better
the Ohio pardon and how this is ordained by God or some stupid shit like that. I'm like,
what are you doing?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, why? Who?
I will tell you beyond political philosophy, the biggest reason I could never be a Republican is snobbery on my part because I can't associate with people who agree with that kind of message. I'm a complete fucking snob. When you say, "Oh, God,"
do you want to talk about dipshit positions that liberals hold? Because we can do that all day. The fact that y'all can barely count to fucking 10 when it comes to economics is embarrassing. It really is. No, the fact that several major players in the Democratic Party still push Keynesian economics is fucking embarrassing.
I'll give you that.
That's
embarrassing.
I'll give you that.
Well, we suck on economic message. I agree completely.
And you want to talk about spending money, but you don't know how to fucking
manage it. I was talking about snobbery. Or make this is different. You're talking about
and I'm being
policy.
snobbish. No, I'm being snobbish because you know what? Everybody's opinion about.
I'm glad that we took this one down to just a fucking base level.
No,
you always talk about some high level bullshit.
This goes down to what we were talking about earlier. This meta level stuff.
Yeah, and that's
the fact that everyone wants to draw lines based on like
some dumbass shit that don't matter.
That are obviously not
relevant at all.
About we have a country to run, people. Like we have got to pass bills.
Why are you arguing about that?
We have got shit we gotta do. We got balance. We got budgets to balance. Why are we talking about gay fucking marriage?
Exactly. High fives.
Yeah, I mean, like, who gives a goddamn?
Right. Here's my promise to you: if you can find a Republican that only talks smart economics, I will vote for that guy. Okay, I'm not hyper partisan. All right, I will vote for that guy. I don't care. I want rational governance. That's the baseline. Rational governance.
Republicans that talk smart economics are all like pretty far right libertarians in the sense of economic policy. You're eating crow already.
They're never going to be palatable for anyone.
Smart economics and libertarian. That's like an oxymoron.
They're not palatable though. You're not going to be able to handle it. Like the things they're going to say are going to drive you nuts, and it's going to be very basic stuff. Climate change is going to be one of them. We're going to talk about how. Who the hell gives a damn? Like why are you?
But that's not smart economics.
What?
But we're watching how much fucking storm devastation have we had?
Well, okay, no,
in the last month.
That's not the issue because we're talking about American
policy. It's a product of climate change.
We're talking about American policy where we can affect something. When you have countries like India and China that are just fucking things up way worse than we are.
China is becoming one of the leaders in green technology.
Each one of those countries.
They are leading us.
No, they're not.
Yes, they fucking are.
No.
If you pay attention to what they're doing, it's a very different situation.
They're projected by 2050 to surpass us in what we're doing right now. We fight climate change.
You know why? Because they've been horrible for years. You're right.
Yes.
They've been absolutely the worst for years.
I agree.
And guess what? They can't fucking breathe anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And so they're down to brass tacks where they're making these changes.
Awesome. That's great.
And that's going to make them the leaders.
Polluters. What I'm saying is you have two different countries I'm talking about. India and China are both
have a
billion people population.
Go Western Hemisphere.
China is going to become so much better than us.
Well, maybe, but that's 2050. How long does it take for us to get our shit together when half of our businesses anyway adhere to carbon emission standards they're not even forced to adhere to. Because it makes sense
given the trend currently.
Because if there's a chance to minimize risk and to stop fucking things up.
Ross just manipulated this so that we would fight.
No,
hey man, I'm getting to a real conversation.
Well, I'm just saying, on that level, I mean, you have businesses that are smart, even from a libertarian perspective. Personally, my end of it, if 95% of climate scientists agree or whatever, saying that,
but yes,
okay, 97 say, hey, you should reduce carbon emissions because that's kind of fucking our shit up.
Well, see, you can't sell it to the right though. The only way to sell it is talking strictly about
business practices.
Well, that in the immediate environment, you can talk about
not the immediate. No one gives a shit about the immediate environment. No one gives a shit about the immediate environment.
You care about breathing air. That's how it works in China.
No, they don't really care about that.
Well, they do now, but we care about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they really don't. But
when it's dark at day,
we care about money.
Sure.
And if you sell them on the idea that making these moves
is
reduce
a better
carbon emission
business
things
investment.
will save you money down the road,
yes.
since you have to make the infrastructure improvements anyway.
You have to,
and that's not a thing.
That's return on investment. That's return on investment.
Like they
that's
don't
simple
pitch
shit.
well enough. But that's bad messaging.
But that's always been my position.
Yes,
I always have
it goes down
when
to
you
bad
sell it,
messaging.
What's the small government, smart economic solution to climate change, to reducing emissions, to things like that? Let's have that conversation.
Do you really want to have that one?
Yeah, we can.
I'll tell you. Solar. I mean, honestly, solar.
Sell them on the message that it's worth spending the money. Like
solar is the only way.
Sell them on the message that the return on investment is better.
But you and I know when we talk to people who are climate change faux skeptics that you can't get that far in the conversation unless there's an acknowledgement that something needs to change.
And that's because the left has pushed the message way too hard on regulation and demonizing these people. Guess what? The natural inclination of human beings is to kick back when someone kicks at you and says, that guy's an asshole. We need, carbon emission restrictions.
Oh, do your Becky voice.
And he's going, yeah, exactly. Becky voice. And Becky's over here like, hey, bitch, I have this company that's worth like $500 billion, and you can go fuck yourself.
I don't have to do jack shit.
Like half of Congress is in my pocket, and I do what I want.
I'll get too fucked.
So maybe don't push that.
Right.
Maybe don't push it that way. Maybe sell them on the idea that, hey, the juice is worth the squeeze.
You're like, by the way,
you're only going to spend an extra 5% on infrastructure upgrades if you make them, carbon efficient.
Meta conversation.
Sell that.
I'm going to step back. Meta conversation. It's more of like the Simon Sinek, like, what is your why? That kind of thing.
Yes.
So, like, if your why is just to make money, then great. Like, you're going to do whatever ends and means. But most people aren't like that. Most people aren't like that. So you have to find what it is, their why that fits that methodology.
Here's the problem on business law is that as far as corporations go and corporate fiduciary duties, you are required by law as a corporation to make money for your shareholders. You are to increase profit.
But if you can show why,
exactly,
then that's what matters. So you have to take a step. Again, meta level problem. That's within the entire conversation.
But my issue is that you're not going to sell it to corporations that have all this money in control.
But you're ruining
if you sell it as you're an asshole and we're demonizing you in the press,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, well, the smart move is to fight back and show that you're not worthy of demonization.
No. Yeah. Here's the thing. You can get out in front of the PR stream because you're already doing X, Y, and Z. You can go ahead and do X, Y, and Z. You would go ahead and doing this, and like even just if you curtail it over the next 10 years by showing each one of those things, I'm sure that the media will show up for you.
Also, the Sierra Club spokesperson versus the ExxonMobil spokesperson. Mm-hmm. Guess which one is better at the job?
Exactly.
Yeah, who's worth more money and who gets paid to do a better job?
Right. Who will be more, impactful? Yeah, I agree with that. Too.
Yeah,
you got to know the spin.
And meanwhile, on the sidelines, from the shit you don't actually get to see, ExxonMobil has been investing and searching for climate change solutions since the fucking 70s. And you don't hear about it because they're not implementing them because it's not time yet. Because again, it goes with when do you push the button? And when you're in control of the conversation and half of Congress is in your pocket,
the button.
You push the button. Trick. And when it's time to push the button, guess who
gets to determine how that rolls out. Again, it's all about the counteroffensive. You are waiting for them to hit you.
Yeah,
you just keep waiting. until the time is right.
Okay. And it's been an ongoing problem. And I agree with you that it's been an ongoing problem within liberalism, within progressive thought.
Stop fighting invisible monsters.
If you confront people and we balk at
this. Friedrich Nietzsche quote, don't fight the monsters lest you become one.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that we could go
so deep into that. It is
what it is. Like, I am not a nihilist, but like that is one of those things.
Okay, let me finish what I'm saying. All right. And here the issue, and I'm agreeing with you guys, okay? Yeah. The issue is that when you confront people with essentially science, facts, reality, that there's a disconnect on the left with how could people possibly balk at this?
Yeah, but these are people on the left that don't know a goddamn thing about science, facts, or reality. They just buy the message.
I would disagree. It's how to pitch the message.
No,
but if the reality is...
How many general Tumblr liberals do you know that know a goddamn thing about climate change?
Zero. But minimal.
But because the science community has a large consensus, it does make sense. However, you're fighting a spin machine worth a lot more money than you are.
Yeah.
You know,
no, that's the problem. It's not that liberals don't understand what really happens in climate change.
I'll go back to a personal thing here for a second. So, like, I have been asked on a regular basis, like, why do you prefer to work from the inside than the outside? Mm-hmm. Why do you fight internally rather than externally? Why are you not railing against what it is that you don't like? Why are you not publicly bashing what it is that whatever? That doesn't work for people like me.
Exactly what I was saying.
We have to go internally
and fix the problem
and say, guys, listen up. Let me show you what it is that you're up against. Let me show you how much you can gain if you just stop fighting one of those fights.
If you don't have
one of them.
If you don't have a unified front and you're not pushing a message that people want to buy.
So that's one of the reasons why I work with people on both sides of the aisle, is because I'm the one that can step back and say, and I hate saying it like that because it sounds so fucking egotistical. But like, but it's one of those things where like,
just own it.
But if you're seeing it,
yeah, I mean,
and my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who came up with this or whatever, but I heard it somewhere one time and it really made an impact. But like, the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is not king. He's crazy because you're the only one that can see, like what the answer is, and no one else can see.
You're Cassandra,
right? So like, you got this one thing, and you're like, but it's so why are you even why? So you have to go in and explain. That's not the one you should be hitting. Like, if you want to fight something, like, you're just losing time, energy, resources on this one thing that doesn't make any sense. If you want to make an impact, you should move it to blank.
And this was my complaint when I was saying the last post I saw on Facebook from the Murray County GOP was praising the pardon of Joe Arpaio. Cool.
That's a bad move.
Yeah, your base loves that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that, like,
it becomes more exclusionary.
Yes.
33
You're not bringing anyone in.
Robert Greene is my favorite author. If anyone out there listening right now wants to know how to get anywhere in life, go read Robert Greene. The Art of Seduction, 33 Strategies of War, 48 Laws of Power, Mastery. Go read those 4 books. You will have a blueprint for how you should live your life. And 33 Strategies of War, one of the most important tenets is never do anything to harden your enemy. You never want to put up something. Exactly. You never want to attack them on a front. No. And this works both ways. Never do anything to harden them because they're only going to fight harder because of it. Why are you doing such a stupid thing?
Don't give them the room to unify.
Right.
You want to divide them,
Yeah, you want to do everything internally.
I do this with religion, though. When I'm not talking about politics, when I'm just arguing against, we know certain ones in common. The extremely fundamentalist Christian. I figure if I harden them enough, if I play into their melodrama hard enough, that they become repulsive to everyone else around them.
Right,
and it becomes counterproductive on their part.
Do you any favors?
No, that makes you a saboteur on a very micro level.
Right, so the trick is to deploy a weapon.
I'm operating on a micro level.
No.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. But you can operate on a micro level that has macro effects.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So you deploy on a micro level an argument that is so far down the line that they have to deconstruct one piece at a time. They're like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. Wait. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I was talking about with progressive liberals and not seeing the forest through the trees.
So you have to think.
I want to micro attack somebody on a micro
4 or 5 steps ahead to where you're like, this is a one dot.
But you understand the difference though in my public messaging. Like when I write op-eds,
sure,
I'm not as prolific as I used to be.
I did not write blanket strategies work too, though. They work as well, but only when you've done the work of the tiny pinprick on the heart. It's going to make the one thing, because one of those macro level things is going to hit the thing. You can't turn the dial all at once. You can't flip it left to full right. You can't do right to full left. You can't do any of those things.
A great analogy
it doesn't work.
How do you fight cancer?
One fucking notch at a time.
The way you fight cancer...
you're going to have to move it one dial.
The way you fight cancer is you start with chemotherapy, something that courses through the entire body to get it ready to go. And then you target with surgery to try to remove it. And then you focus radiation on a very micro level to take care of the problem.
Again, most people are fighting problems, and this is your life strategy, ladies and gentlemen. You're fighting problems on a tactics level, where you're just dealing with the day-to-day. Again, this is back to the meta level.
And this is why
you're dealing with the day-to-day. You're dealing with this one thing. You're dealing with this one thing. You're dealing with one thing. When if you dealt with the thing above it, it would deal with 6 things.
This is why non-commissioned officers don't have control over war zones.
Exactly.
If you want somebody's opinion on how to fight in one sector and do something, you ask your NCO. If you want someone's opinion on how do you contain the war in Afghanistan, ask the fucking general.
5-star general.
Exactly.
And you listen. When someone that has more authority, that has more experience, that has more of everything that it is, again, this goes back to a conversation we were supposed to have, like maybe part of it.
Yeah.
But bad leadership.
Sure.
You listen to the people that know more than you do. I wouldn't be in the position that I am today. I wouldn't be sitting here with you people. Like I wouldn't be in any position of influence today if I hadn't taken a step back at one point and said, oh shit, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's another conversation happening that I'm unaware of. Maybe there's another angle to this that I can't see.
And that is a two-way street as far as the people in charge go. Listen to your NCOs. Listen to the people who are telling you about that section.
If they're doing well, they're leading up the chain of command. Exactly. They're trying their damnedest to tell. Because that's the only thing I've ever done in a leadership position is try to tell someone ahead of me, I can tell you what's coming.
Yep.
That's all I can do. I can't plan appropriately for it unless you give me the things that I need. So that's why I'm telling you, here's what I see. Here's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want that, if you don't like that, cool, ignore me. But if you want to help actually make a difference for that dude, Jerry over there,
right?
Yeah.
Jerry's
just been trying to be Jerry this whole damn
shit
time.
on right now. I'm trying to help Jerry. You need to help me help Jerry. Because it's the only way it's gonna happen.
Imagine JFK's speech.
Yeah.
Help me help
Jerry. That dude, that guy right there.
That's not
also a different note. God damn it, Jerry.
Yeah. God damn it, Jerry.
That's not what your
But
country
there again,
can
it
do
works
for
both
you.
ways.
That's what you can do for Jerry.
Yeah, exactly. But it works both ways because if Jerry's fucking up, you gotta be able to be like, Jerry, I swear to God, do you see me?
But at the same time, you can't ignore Jerry because Jerry's feeding you kernels of good information
Right,
you're not getting from anywhere else.
Exactly. So that's why leadership.
Jerry's all like, "Hey, boss, there's a leak in the wall here."
Yeah, you're gonna have to help me. So the person above him goes like, "Hey guys, Jerry has a problem. I need you to help Jerry."
Yeah.
And the person above you is like, "Well, fuck Jerry." It's like, no. I don't think you get it yet.
Yeah, we really gotta make sure
really gotta help
solid.
Jerry for a second.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Well, that was a fun little rabbit trail.
Yeah, that was a whole rabbit hole.
So the last thing I think we should address that we were talking about here is obviously we're burgeoning into our media experience. Or some of us have
You're
some
not
media
just burgeoning.
experience.
You've been doing this a while. You're doing a great job, guys.
But
you're really killing it.
But you're also into the media experience end too. and I think this is the fun end on politics, aside from our huge macro level we just had about, ways to approach climate change.
Yeah.
But, and that's just strategy-wise.
Yeah.
No one's talking numbers.
But it's a good thing.
But
it's a good thing.
Let's talk about the idea of what the media is today, particularly under the umbrella of the Trump presidency.
How much?
And I don't just mean the media in the sense of like the New York Times or CNN or WAPO or the Wall Street Journal or Fox News, but being in media, but particularly also being part of the press conference for the White House.
How much do you not want to be Trump press secretary? How much? Give us the lowdown.
I would want it just to test my mettle.
Oh
like
if
he wants to hire me right now, like I'll take it, and I have absolutely no idea what the job entails.
Bro, I really feel like that's what Sean Spicer wanted too.
Yeah,
he regretted the fuck out of it.
I would rather take it on and realize that I lost and write $1 million book because of it. Because like I'll take those hits. Like if I need to step out and do those things, like I'll take those hits. Like I've never had a problem being able to accept the responsibility in and thereof of a thing that it is that I have to do if that's what it is that's needed of me. I don't have that problem. However, I cannot imagine, I cannot fathom, I cannot deal with, and I've had to kind of deal with it before, but like I can't, and the scope that it is now, like of a candidate or a elected official that just disregards all human capacity to understand when not to do things.
I mean, shouldn't this apply to any kind of
anyone ever, like a CEO or like anybody in charge? Like it doesn't matter.
Anybody a PR representative standpoint.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
like
a
CEO or an actor
if
or a
I
musician,
tell you,
could be
like,
being Kanye West
as a person that has represented a number of different people in a number of different situations as not only their figurehead or their public relations manager or being in charge of anything. Like when I say, please, dear God, don't do that. Like, I mean, that to me is like the ultimate stopgap. And if you cross that line, like I'm done at that point because you've already broached the one thing that I said, please don't do.
And that's interesting.
Please don't do.
So you would last like a day in the White House.
Probably, yeah.
My question there
because I'd be like, don't. And then, like, it gets broken, and you're like, well, I can't do this anymore because...
Has anyone that you know of, I mean, I really trying to think of the press team for Trump. Has anyone ever hit that point? And
I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, Spicer...
Who knows,
Well,
honestly.
no, I take that back. Spicer took it until Scaramucci was hired.
Yeah.
And then the Mooch got his job, and Spicer was immediately like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know? And he also told the president, you're making a huge mistake.
Yeah, I would say that on a regular basis. Like I feel as the media person, as the press guy, like it is your job. I always look at it like, all right, so let me give you some backstory. So the only person that can stop a live city council meeting in Columbia, Tennessee is me. I will stop a live city council meeting in a heartbeat. And I liken it to what, if you watch Star Trek, if you love Star Trek, like the medical officer. The lead medical officer is the only one that can take out the captain. Like, you are unfit for duty. You know, that sort of thing. Like, I always feel like it should be the lead media person's job to be like, this is over the line. We have gone too far. You have to stop. Like, this is where we have to pull it back. Like, everything from here on out, like, has got to be led by here until someone else can step up and take that role.
Have you ever had to do that?
Not as in my own project, yes. In someone else's, yes. I've had to do it twice where I'm like, you need to quit.
You don't have to explore that if you don't want to.
I don't want to.
Okay,
I really don't.
Okay.
I really don't. But it's one of those things where you're like,
names are changed to protect the guilty.
I'm telling, like, if you don't, I am going to stop being your friend and I'm going to stop this.
But that's how you get fired.
Professionally. That is exactly how you get fired. But I did not get fired. Because
someone actually listened to you?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, they did.
That's comforting for us.
Yeah, but like it comes with a level of expertise. Like if you explain it well enough, like if you continue, let me show you the ramifications that are going to happen.
First of all, the fact that you even got to this point is fucking embarrassing.
Yeah. Obviously. Right. But that's what happens when you get brought on late in the game.
Yeah.
You know, like if you were early on, you know, it's one of those things. I normally don't get called for not only like political, but for business or whatever when things have gone so horribly wrong that it looks like it's irrecoverable.
Please fix this.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Like someone has to step in and like rein it in. And like I have a no nonsense approach to that. And it probably affects the number of relationships that I have personally, not only, you know, whatever, because like I don't allow things to continue.
But that's what you do for a living.
You're essentially the guardrail.
Yeah, you got it.
And
like,
it's hard to come
against me
late in the game.
I'm not gonna move until I'm not doing.
And someone's already gone past the guardrail. And you're coming in trying to beat the guardrail. Yeah, you're like, dude, you should have been on this guardrail way long ago.
But I mean, bring this all the way back to the Trump campaign when it started.
And I'm willing to step over the line a good bit. You know, that's the thing.
I'm saying, like, to bring this back to the Trump campaign since it started. It seems like no one has had the foundation from the beginning.
No, no one has the nuts, the guts, the balls.
Lewandowski, I believe his name was like the first guy.
Which one?
Lewandowski, I think his name was.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'd have to look that
up. Yeah, I'm not sure on the pronunciation.
I'm definitely not sure on the pronunciation. He's got
because my default stance is no.
But that's the guy. That's the guy who was alleged to have assaulted from there.
Right. But that's been the blessing and the curse of Trump himself and the Trump campaign is that he's so far off the rails, and anyone whose job is to be guardrails for him fails because Trump just does what he wants. And the problem that creates for anyone who's opposing him, that you know he's been resilient because of the fact that he does so many horrible things and says so many things that are way off the guardrails that there's no consistent messaging against him. There wasn't during the whole campaign. You're responding to this tweet. You're responding to that tweet. You're responding to he said this publicly. He did this.
He's doing a macro level solution to a macro level problem, and it's hard to get around that because you're trying to lead someone to a different solution than just an immediate base level animal Pavlovian response. Yeah. You know, like if someone's using a Pavlovian method to move their brain forward on a regular basis, like, well, I have to do this, I have to do this one thing, I have to do this one thing, I have to do this one thing. Like, it's hard to get them to think in a macro level way. Like, you don't understand that your actions have consequences for a lot of people. You know, so like
it's extremely reactionary, absolutely.
Is going to cause a lot of work for a lot of people that didn't need this because of the last crisis you caused. Or the like they're still reeling from the 1-2 weeks ago. Why are you pouring 7 more on?
This is the problem with letting somebody talk. I thought I had a good point to interject, and I was just like, oh man, I don't even know how to address this. I was trying to fish for something like that. We can't even get good, positive press coverage for the things he does right.
You got it.
But that's because he fucks up so much.
Right, and you're like, it's gone in a news cycle.
And even when
it's gone in 30 minutes. Like any good press that you could create for it, even the minimal amount of thing that you could do to make this like even. And I'll always look at like good media and that sort of thing is like plants. So a lot of good media takes time to grow. You have to have good relationships. You have to have
You need to have trusted sources.
You have to have trusted sources that you can leak to. You have to have these things to where like as a person working in this environment, like I have to be able to go to a reporter and be like, I really, really need you to handle this appropriately. Please handle this right. Please do this one thing right. But when the person above you is doing whatever they want, you can't. They're coming to you like, well, what dumpster fire do you have today? You're like, dude, I can't even.
In the pure chaos of the 10 days that the mooch ran the press corps, like, Jesus, like, how do you deal with sound bites coming from your boss, like Steve Bannon's trying to suck his own cock? Which is still, ladies and gentlemen, #. Greatest poll quote of all time. It will always be the best poll quote ever. There's nothing better than I'm not Steve Bannon. I'm not trying to suck my own cock.
Almost also one of the worst mental images that I can conceive of.
Oh man.
I mean, but here's the thing, like as bad as he wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't. No, it just he really needed to lay off the cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. He really needed to like He was at level 7. You take it down to a 2.
Yeah, you really you really need to understand the concept of the entirety of journalism to know that when you're talking to somebody, especially when you initiate the phone call, you maybe say protocol. It's off the record.
You
just
say
it's off the record. Just start with, hey, this whole thing's off the record. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and like if you land blast somebody, they at least respect you for.
Oh yeah, no, they have to. These are the rules. Yeah, if you're obviously the press secretary for the White House, you should probably be recording your own phone calls. So
to make sure that
if you said, hey, this is off the record, and then they printed anything that you said, you could sue the holy piss out of them.
Right.
That's absolutely not acceptable.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
and I've gone off the record for candidates many.
Anybody who's ever worked in any
has
position that has anything to do with the government or public has probably been interviewed at some point, either at their boss's behest or on their own as an anonymous source.
Yeah,
we're all anonymous sources.
Right.
We all are. Everybody's an anonymous source. You say something sooner or later working in the public sector.
And you may accidentally say it and be like, oh, that's off the record.
Yeah.
Except and any good reporter is going to be like, cool, because they know that they've gotten enough out of you beforehand, and we'll get enough out of you on the back end.
But if they burn you, then
also
if you burn them, you burn them.
But I'm just going to go ahead and tell you ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you work in any semblance of a public sector where you may be interviewed by the press, know the rules.
Yeah,
always start with, oh, hey, reporter, how are you?
But
anything I'm about to say is off the record, and we can discuss what will go on the record later.
Or I'll tell you what it is that I want to tell you, and my thing has always been like, here's the official story. Stop recording. Now I'm going to tell you what it is that I can tell you, that I want to tell you, that you should investigate, that you should go look at, that you should do whatever about.
Man, I really don't want you on a campaign I run in the future. No. You start with this entire thing is off the record, and then
I'll give you the official line, and then I'll give you some information that you want. I didn't say it was detrimental to my campaign.
You can always go back and adjust what's on the record.
Yeah, but I would rather. But that's the thing. I'm in the media. I know what I want to hear.
Yeah, fair, I guess. If you
I want to know where the plan is.
If I'm going to run a campaign in the future,
I want to know where the acceptable play is. That's always the thing. Like, I want to know where the inbounds is, and I want to know where the outbounds is.
The good news is we're discussing
a hypothetical scenario that doesn't exist.
We're also discussing the Mooch's 10 days. Which
yes.
I mean, these are things that pretty much anyone in any level who operates in campaigns, operates in the media,
is going to have to deal with, or has dealt with,
or will deal with. But the Mooch is
part
and parcel. What happened with him is part and parcel to the Trump administration.
Yes.
This is how the game is played, which is to say, smacking all the pieces off the board and flipping the table.
Has no respect
this is what the game looks like in the Trump administration.
He obviously has no respect for media to begin with.
Sure.
So, he has no respect for...
Well, it's because he's been lambasted in it for 40 years.
Or he is so deep in corruption that any one stone unturned is going to screw it all up.
Well, no, that's obviously not the case because he wags his tongue like it's his job.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
I'm just saying that he has paid a lot of people a lot of money. Exactly. In my assumption, this is all speculation.
Yeah,
but I'm saying
we're just
in the world that he operates in, Atlantic City, New York City, things like this, he's been in bed probably with some shady characters for a while, and he knows how to operate around that.
Of course.
I'm not saying anything because there's no proof of anything.
He acts with someone that has nothing to hide or everything to hide.
He does, and that's the problem.
There's no middle ground there.
I'm not accusing the man.
Maybe it's
I'm not going to accuse the man.
That's like the Area 51 joke. Like, it can't possibly be a real thing.
Unless it's
Trump
a
would have
thing.
said, Trump would have said something about it by now, because he's incapable.
But that also brings me to the other question of being on the other end of this. Because, we've obviously just attacked the living holy hell out of Trump. I think there was mafia accusations. I made those.
I said Putin, but you were on point.
No, here's my point. Stop. There's no proof of these kinds of things.
No.
But I'm saying that,
outside looking in.
Dealing in casinos on a large level in Atlantic City, there's a lot of mafia and Russia involvement.
Well, there's a lot
but,
of law
I mean,
enforcement.
There's
a lot of
but
political
but
things
hang on,
that,
wait,
like,
I don't
want to
go
anyone,
I don't want to go about that. I'm trying to disclaim. I'm just saying.
All right.
There's a lot of realm there that you could speculate into. There's no proof of that. But the point I was trying to make was going back on the other end of it. We could talk about working for Trump in his press secretary corps all day, and that'd be horrible. But what is it like on the other end of the spectrum? You know, like, how do you think it feels when 40% of the country, at least, thinks you're absolutely full of shit every time you report an article accurately? Working for WAPO, working for New York Times.
Yeah. Being called fake news,
being hoisted on a petard for.
So let me take it back a little bit, and this is one of those things that I think is in the book by Ryan Holiday, Perennial Seller, and it basically takes the stance of when Forbes opened it up to opinion. Anyone can write an article for them, kind of like the way Huffington Post did, and you know that's
you label it an opinion, a contributory piece.
Intentionally discrediting news, and it's not it was one of those things where it's like, we have to do this because of the times, and everyone thinks that we should, and it's a great way to get independent commentary and whatever else in, but it also ends up degrading the system in and of itself.
Sure. However, do you think that had to do with Forbes?
I will tell you, on a regular basis, I get told, and Time was one of them. There was a number of different.
Yes, but I'm saying, do you?
I get told, and if you watch the right-leaning sites, if you watch the right-leaning commentaries, if you watch people who just commentate right-wing, like anytime any sort of left-leaning whatever comes up, it's always one of those that like comes up, well, they're not real news anymore.
Well, that's very recent.
That's as recent as you'd think.
That is actually, well, it depends on if you're in John Birch Society or you're watching Fox News. Fox News didn't decry CNN and somebody else's fake news. That's new. That's a Donald Trump invention.
Right.
Once those of us
that were
reasonable said this.
No. They were already doing that to begin with.
They were spinning things, but they were not attacking.
They weren't watching that because they had already decried it fake news, even if they weren't saying that it was. They were saying that it was a left-leaning news source, which means that it's fake news. It's just one more logical.
Yeah, but there's a difference between saying Salon or Mother Jones is a left-leaning news source and saying CNN is.
No, it's not.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing.
No.
Okay.
To them, to the people that you're talking about, it's the exact same thing.
Well, it is now, and my point is...
No, it's been that way for a while.
Yeah, except the difference is that the term fake news...
I would say that, yes, it has been for a while, but it's also intensified recently.
It's cranked up. I'll give you that.
Fake news
fake news angle,
came as a Donald Trump campaign response to fake Russian news stories that were actually
legitimate things.
Pizzagate is a great example of Hillary Clinton runs an underage sex ring in the bottom of a pizza parlor in D.C.
Yeah,
like
in the basement.
And we have
you've heard this, right?
We've obtained this document that shows the Podesta.
Right.
We've obtained this document that shows the Podesta emails.
Yeah,
and that didn't stop them. You know,
we've obtained this document that shows the Podesta emails are actually all coded, and here's the keyword code. That shows, I mean, it was like the South Park episode about the man-boy love thing.
But that's been a while ago. Again, like
that's not a while ago. That was a year ago. But
man-boy,
I'm talking about NAMBLA, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Not NAFTA.
I know, but I'm saying that was an analogy.
Let's not draw those two.
It was an analogy.
I mean, but for real though.
But that's where I drew the analogy. Because that was the analogy of ridiculousness.
Like, and in a number of philosophy
you're being shown
a great basis
you're being shown the Podesta emails are being turned into absolute nonsense.
Right.
Hillary Clinton is having people killed. Hillary Clinton runs a child sex ring.
Right.
All of this bullshit.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton stopped the cure of cancer, and you're like, how does that work?
But people are sharing these things by the million through Facebook, and like it's spreading everywhere.
Yeah.
And someone came up with the term, this is fake news.
Yeah.
Well, the Trump campaign response to it was CNN's fake news.
Yeah, they co-opted it.
And they co-opted it. And that's what I'm saying is that this idea of fake news has intensified.
Did they co-opt it, or was it a counteroffensive?
Even if it's they co-opted the term.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
But if it's
as a counteroffensive.
News hijacking.
But my point is that you've now hijacked this term to discredit every credible news source on the fucking planet. The Wall Street Journal has been labeled fake news by the Trump campaign.
Which is ridiculous.
The National Review has been labeled or have been labeled
the
fake
Washington
news.
Post.
Yeah.
The Washington Post.
The Washington Post is liberal. I mean, I'm just going to give it to you. It's not hard liberal or anything, but it's got a liberal slant.
I don't care. It's the Washington Post.
The National Review was
based
started
in
by
a
William
city.
F. Buckley fucking Jr.
Sorry.
It is a conservative news site, and it has been labeled fake news. You know, like the idea that anything that ever comes out against Trump in any kind of criticism, fake news.
Sure.
That's new. No one's done that, and that gains traction.
Well, the Russians have been doing it for a very long time.
Well, it only gains traction for 30 or 40% of the voting population.
Right, the people that.
But it gains traction with these people.
Exactly. Enough of a population that it matters.
So my question there, which is what I was going for this entire time before we sidetracked again, was what are your thoughts about being a participant, being a reporter or a journalist for someone who is fake news, like WAPO or New York Times? Imagine you are a New York Times political correspondent. I mean, that's your job.
It would only make me fight harder to report the stories.
But 40% of the country thinks you're a fucking dipshit
don't
and a liar. And they call you a
care.
liar on a daily basis.
I don't care.
And that's why 40% of the country are.
And so every time they catch you on some misstatement or some slightly skewed fact that,
Would you like for me to put it a different way?
Yeah.
So today I was reading a news article to one of the people that the news article was referencing, and it referenced a completely different agency that the person was associated with on a news site here in town. Whereas the one time I've ever messed up in my career, I got 7 messages about I spelled something wrong.
Well, that's pretty admirable. Honestly, we all make.
But my point is that most people pick out the one thing that doesn't necessarily matter when they should.
But it shows an inaccuracy.
Exactly, it should be analyzing the other way.
They found a chink in your armor and they're looking for it.
Great, of course.
Yeah, it's cherry picking.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I misspelled someone's name one time.
So you're fake news.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my question.
You know,
we could beat up on Donald Trump all day.
Right.
That's fine.
It's too easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, like it's like beating
Entry
a child.
Level. Yeah.
It's like
entry level
a child.
Entry level media. Yeah. Like yes, obviously. You know,
Yes,
like they're teaching this in every college course.
But the issue is that back when you used to beat up on a target that was easy to beat up on, that flew. It doesn't fly anymore. 40% of the country calls you a liar and doesn't believe anything you print or write. Right. All of your correspondents are now garbage.
Labeled. Yeah.
No one believes it doesn't matter if you told them Christ was coming back and gave them a date and time tomorrow at noon, and Christ showed up at 12:01.
Right.
You'd be a piece of shit for getting
because
it
you
wrong.
said noon.
I'm just saying, like, what do you think it's like to actually be a journalist right now? I mean, like, keep in mind that only a select few of us that are billionaire hedge fund babies and things like that can actually work in the press secretary corps for the White House.
Right.
However, everybody else who actually studies journalism, gives a damn about the ethics,
and respects
the system. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These people are getting shit on left and right unless you work for Breitbart.
I say that I can't imagine, but at the same time, that's the front line. And if you want to do good work, it's kind of the same way that I feel like in the Nixon administration when the Pentagon Papers got released. It's almost that level thing going on.
The Nixon administration just kind of deferred and didn't say anything. There were 3 or 4
but that's
congressmen
the only thing that we can modern time equate it to.
But it doesn't count because back then people still had a semblance of decency.
But if you know anything about the Washington Post printing the Pentagon Papers, there was a huge. Again, this is one of
there was a big backlash from
readers. Huge, gargantuan. They
readers.
Went without weeks without a paper because none of their contributors, because the White House had blacklisted them.
Yes.
They couldn't print papers for a while.
I understand.
They couldn't report.
Yes.
They couldn't do their job. They were completely cut out, and they provided the one thing that brought down a corrupt administration.
Yes.
That's the point that we're at now. But no one. If they have the information, if they're willing to.
But the difference is we don't have the ability to stop their presses.
No, we really don't.
So instead, we discredit them, so no one believes it.
You discredit, whatever.
So
and
now
they did that at the time.
Now the Washington
only
Post.
The one thing.
Now the Washington Post is questioned when they
print
something by 50%.
Exactly. Anyone anywhere could have printed the truth by now, and no one would. I'll give you another example, and this is one that I heard back years and years ago from great sports broadcaster. There is a sports broadcaster out in the middle of Walla Walla, Washington, that is the best play-by-play announcer that you've never, ever heard?
Apparently, you've never heard of Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Tony Romo's premiere calling the Titans game.
Is he kind of killing it?
He predicted like half of the plays from both teams before they happened. He's like, oh, they're going to run this one to the left.
Yeah.
And they did. I mean, he was never wrong. There's like a 15-minute clip of him throughout this 3-hour game
somebody
calling plays, and he's right every
doing the best job you've
So he's got a good
seen.
eye when he wipes the tears out.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah.
Sorry.
But,
I had to do
but
it.
I'm sorry.
There's somebody somewhere doing this job the best, that's doing it absolutely the best that we've never seen.
But the point is that we don't have a way to carry it.
No
and
way.
my issue is that if you're an aspiring journalist and you're a young person, you're doing this.
Yeah.
How do you
What's
get
the motivation
ahead?
when
How
everyone
do you-
thinks you're
how
full
do you
of
strike
shit?
forward? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know anymore.
I think it's going to have a detrimental effect on sort of the next generation.
It is. Like,
I
it
do
really
too.
sucks for anyone trying to get into this right now. It really sucks for creators. It really sucks for journalists. It really sucks for any of those people that are trying to make any sort of decent impact in this sphere, because you literally can't. Without being Alex Jones, without being like one of those other like inflammatory, like Tommy Lawrence, get out of here. Get out of here.
Okay.
Like,
yeah. No, I mean,
you know, but you see what I'm saying? Like an extreme media personality.
You have to sit here and talk down to a dumb level and just sell bullshit.
Because
That's
those
not
people
right.
always have a core base
Right.
of, Kool-Aid
But
drinkers.
these people,
Which is why I like having the meta conversation about what's actually happening rather than trying to break apart the minimalist view of it, because it's like, yes, you're hitting on points, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a macro level problem, like you're hitting on symptoms and not the cause. That's been this whole thing.
It has.
And that's I think part of what we're trying to do is to stop addressing, the micro level shit, even though I am very guilty of that on more than one occasion, to get to the macro, see, this is why he's the guru. This is why he's the guy.
I've been saying it for a long time. He doesn't listen, guys.
We learn. We live and then we learn.
Yeah, it's better when you hear another person tell you you're drunk.
Oh.
It's time to sit down. Guilty.
Which is so ironic.
High fives all around. High fives all around for that one.
Guilty. Been there, done that.
But yeah, and that's part of what we're trying to do here too. That's part of Fermenting Opinions is to get to this, this better meta level conversation and talk about real solutions instead of getting into the nitty gritty and the partisanship and
we really didn't get to a solution.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, and getting to a solution.
We really didn't.
Which
get to
I maintain
a solution,
still
but
requires
we
an
at
acknowledgement
least
of
opened
facts.
up the lane for there to be a solution to be created instead of just going down the same roads that don't obviously work.
Right.
So obviously you need to go down a new one. Try something new.
Exactly, because we've been going down these same damn roads and they
don't
we're
work.
all dead ends.
And we can all cite, perfect examples is climate change bullshit. We can all cite articles from both sides that's either climate change is real,
but that's not going to solve anything.
But it doesn't. No, what we got to do is talk about the way we address the problem in the first place.
Exactly.
Which is what we're trying to do.
You
here.
got it.
Yeah.
God. Good job, everybody.
Good
job.
Yes, indeed. Well, on that note, I think it's time we probably wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and wrap it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure.
There's a handshake.
Thank you.
We've high-fived and handshook. We've drank whiskey tonight, and we've talked politics and
all the things
and life and philosophy and tech, and if you catch the pre-show, we're all video game nerds.
Campaign strategy as well. Yeah,
absolutely. We've solved all the world's problems tonight.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I think we opened like 3 more, but that's not the point.
Don't worry about that portal. Don't worry
the libertarian message. Please eradicate liberalism. No. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for us tonight. Again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Ross Jaynes, check out Ross Jaynes Media.
JaynesMedia.com, RossJaynes.com, Fermenting Opinions. Ask me about All the Balls Sports Show. Basically everything under our umbrella, Murray County Now. All the things we end up doing all together. Like I want to help promote everyone doing all the good things.
We are the rising tide in Murray County.
We
will raise all ships.
Yeah, raise all the ships.
We raise all ships. That's correct.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Well, I'm David Popeiden.
I'm James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions.
Thank you for joining us.
Till next time, guys.